and introducing Charalampos Saitis. Over to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks to Tom and Simon for putting this together again this year. So last year I was here sort of presenting kind of an idea for running a hackathon and doing an ethnography about timbre and musical interaction. So we did that hackathon and we did the ethnography. So I'm gonna give you like a summary of what this all was about. So timbre matters, but it is difficult to work with. It is often defined as a wastebasket for everything that is not accounted by pitch or loudness or timing. But the truth is that there is an abundance of musical expression in this wastebasket. It is in this wastebasket where we keep discovering elements and sounds that we did not initially notice or anticipate. So following on from that quote by musicologist Daniel Villegas-Velez, to work with timbre requires to constantly negotiate and redefine it within our musical and sonic experience and our practice. So our question here is, to start digging into the wastebasket is how is timbre used and understood in actual creative practice? For example, when we want to design tools and instruments for crafting musical expression. This approach turns attention to the site that lies between the creator, the composer, the live coder, the musical instrument maker, and the receiver, the listener, the performer, the analyst, and that is technology. This is what Dana Goulet proposes, and Emily Dolan has done a lot of work in showing how there is a very intricate relationship. There is an entanglement, to use a popular word lately, between technological developments in music and the foregrounding of timbre in musical discourse. So focusing on technology then raises interesting but still not very explored questions about the role and practice of timbre thinking in the development and adoption of sound technologies, design thinking, and their surrounding sonic cultures. I'm not going to be talking a lot about sonic cultures in this talk, but this is kind of an extension of this work that we hope to do with one of my co-authors who is somewhere in the audience. So we propose then a hackathon and rapid ethnography to observe how the practice and idea of timbre is dynamically reshaped through social collaborative interactions, negotiating timbre, and technological encounters like working with timbre. So we did a 48-hour hackathon. We invited music technologists to ideate and prototype tools for supporting timbre use and exploration in the craft practice of DMI making. That's what we call Timbre Tools. We had some open-ended creative prompts that were based on initial analysis of interviews that I've been conducting for the past year with instrument makers. The reason I've been focusing on DMIs specifically, or NIMEs if you prefer, is that they represent a specialized domain and a diverse community concerned with crafting musical expression. So it's a very good corpus to begin with, and I hope to expand these ideas in broader electroacoustic traditions and practices. So this is our methodological approach. Or hypothesis maybe. We expected timbre tools to be comprised through the interplay between timbre thinking and design thinking. This whole interaction gets influenced constantly through the resources of the participants in the hackathon, the kind of specific practices, artistic practices, intentions, the kind of tools they use, the related sonic cultures, and of course, the way we designed the hackathon and the kind of resources we provided, so the prompts we gave them, we had some workshops that took place a week before the hackathon to help people meet each other and so on, and of course the way they had to form teams and work together over 48 hours. So why Timbre Tools? So I thought actually some of our submissions, they answered this question for me. So I'm gonna try and play this for you.
The problem we are trying to solve in Timbre Tools Hackathon.
Oops. Nope. So I'll do that now. Oh, sorry. Of course.
The problem we are trying to solve in Timbre Tools Hackathon 2024 is to answer the question, why is timbre absent from the digital instrument maker's toolbox? In our analysis, there are 3 reasons. Timbre is difficult to visualize. Unlike loudness and pitch, timbre does not show up easily on the waveform. Important perceptual timbre descriptors, like spectral flux, are often not available to DMI designers. And finally, it's difficult to create a violinesque timbre without it sounding digital. Timbre is easy to generate, but difficult to guide. The solution could look something like a visual DMI workflow with easy-to-access timbre descriptors that makes timbre generation an easy-to-guide process for DMI designers.
Right, let me see if I can actually... why? Yes.
The problem we are trying to solve in Timbre Tools Hackathon 2024 is to answer the question, why is timbre absent from the digital instrument?
Hi, my name is Billy. This is
like
my
spectral
submission for the Timbre Tools Hackathon. This is an instrument I've been making recently, which uses Teensy audio board, and I thought I would make a synth engine for Teensy, which randomizes patch generation. I find it's quite often a bit of a pain to make do sound design on embedded platforms. So this kind of makes it easy by letting you just press a button and generate a patch. So hopefully we've got some sound.
Right. So, so these are the reasons why we want to explore that, and it's part of a broader project. So hackathons are time-bounded, low-pressure, collaborative events that present themselves as observatories of design thinking. So this is our rationale. And using the double diamond design model and the related concepts of a problem space and a solution space, so designers moving constantly between those two, and from observing, synthesizing, ideating and prototyping, we derived our research questions. So exploring the problem space, how do participants conceptualize timbre, and what collaborative strategies do they use, and exploring the solution space, how do they use currently available tools, and how these tool choices relate to how they understand timbre. So we had 30 participants in total that ended up creating 11 teams. There were only 10 submissions, but we sort of looked at all 11 teams. We partnered with the audio programmer. We tried really to engage communities beyond the academic world, but eventually, as you can see, we ended up having basically more than half of the participants were people involved in academic research on AI and music, and this really influenced what we saw, obviously. We asked teams to post bite-sized reports approximately every hour on Discord channels. This was part of our data. Then the ethnographer team had free-form field notes, drawings as transcription, a shared Miro board. It was really a very collaborative ethnographic analysis. And also some unstructured and semi-structured interviews with the teams throughout the hackathon and a bit afterwards. And all these were collated initially in descriptive accounts of each team and the submission they made. This is available in another publication. And an iterative narrative analysis, over which we did sort of over several weeks, meeting every week and discussing the data over and over. So how do people negotiate timbre, the different concepts and tools? So there was a lot of talk about metaphor. So I won't have time to maybe play the first video, but essentially they used toys. So there was some sort of embodied metaphor approach, but also colors. As you can see from the bottom thing, there was this idea of the timbre space, if you're familiar with, so having some sort of geometrical representation of timbre descriptors, and then using that as a visualization. So basically, metaphors were very prominent. They were the key tool for people to negotiate timbre verbally, but also through tools, reducing somehow the complexity and the multidimensionality of the concept of timbre. A lot of teams used frequency domain methods, spectrograms, MFCCs, to analyze and manipulate timbre, reflecting a particular technoscientific understanding of timbre. Again, this is here the influence of the fact that a lot of the participants came from a specific research background. People used Python notebooks a lot and similar tools where there's not really an option for a real-time playback, right? So as you're crafting sound, getting a sense of what is it that you're making timbrally, you can only do that on compiling. So the focus was really on visualization, favoring datafication over listening. So going a little bit into the things that Artemi very nicely brought up earlier. And this is an interesting difference between what happens in traditional lutherie, right? So people they start crafting a violin, but they constantly get a sense of what sound they are making. This doesn't seem to happen with digital instruments and broadly music technology. So the choice of tools informs timbre negotiation. This seems to agree with earlier observations in a study about digital luthiers and tools. And of course, this idea that models, data, and broadly music informatics practices carry materiality. Collaborative strategies, some people started from concrete design objectives, others had a more interaction-led collaboration. And finally, something kind of a pilot, very experimental thing we did with one of our co-authors. We looked at like spatial formations and social hierarchies and dynamics within teams. We saw some interesting results that we think warrant like a very interesting future work. So to put this together, we sort of presented an ethnographic and multimodal understanding of timbre from the technologist perspective. Metaphor is crucial, so we should study it more towards understanding and modeling timbre communication between the creator and the receiver. Choice of tools is very important. It informs how people conceptualize timbre. We observed some timbre thinking and design thinking to diverge across the team, to be different between teams. However, there was this like shared software technical representation of timbre, this technoscience that I mentioned earlier. And so the entanglement between the initial set of dimensions and metaphors that people rely upon when discussing timbre and the root tools they rely upon when approaching the design of a timbre tool becomes eventually the reflections of their sonic cultures. This is how we ended up summarizing all our observations. Of course, this was a very exploratory study, eventually limited to the microcultures, the microsonic cultures we had in the hackathon. We can't have very generalizable insights, but this is the next step for this research. We see it right now as more generative. We influenced somehow, we as organizers and the communities we targeted influenced a bit the kind of stuff we observed. And we hope to expand on that in the future and also apply theoretical frameworks like Barrett's diffractive analysis to better analyze the kind of entanglements we saw in our data. And this is the bigger picture. So we propose hackathons and ethnographic approaches as a valid method to evaluate this kind of nuanced, hazily defined phenomena in the musical domain, but also beyond. And through this, we hope we can expand, but also confront our current understanding of how timbre is perceived, represented, and generated. And of course, as I said, this is part of a broader project in, informing future development of tools, of timbre tools. So thank you very much. These are the...
Thank you so much. We don't have time for questions right now, but please meet up at lunch, discuss later on. I've got loads of questions. It was nice to see Billy turn up on there as well. I know Billy in that instrument with his little dog. Or,
That's right.
yeah.
Yes.